All right. So, Brian, we appreciate you being here. First of all, what is the district attorney? What do you do exactly?
I'm an elected official who serves the entire county, Limestone County. I've been in office right at a little over a year. I'm responsible for prosecuting every type of criminal case from a speeding ticket all the way to capital murder. Okay. So the files that come through our office, we make a decision whether it be a fine, driving school, community service, all the way to the death penalty. Last year alone, we processed 1,100 felony cases, right at 2,500 misdemeanor cases, and close to 9,000 traffic tickets. One of the things as we start talking a little bit, how many of y'all know the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor? All right. What's the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor?
Felony is falls under like murder, rape, kidnapping, misdemeanor is speeding or doing like traffic.
Very good. Y'all hear her answer? Okay. Big difference with a felony and a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor offense is punishable anywhere from basically 0 time in jail up to a calendar year in the county jail. All right. A felony is the case that you can prosecute from anywhere from a year and a day in the county jail or prison, all the way to being electrocuted. Okay. And one of the things that we kind of talked a little bit tonight about this, that distinction becomes very important. The first thing we're going to talk about tonight, both of them are felony offenses, and depending on how old you are, most of y'all think, okay, I get in trouble, I'm going to go to the juvenile court. Some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, you become an automatic adult. And so you don't go to juvenile jail, you don't deal with Mr. Balls, you go to the county jail, and then essentially on down to the Department of Corrections.
Okay. So what resources do you have to do your job to help you prosecute all these people? I mean, it sounds like if anybody gets in trouble, they're eventually going to come see you, right?
Absolutely. We're partially a state-funded agency. About 38% of my budget comes from your tax dollars and your parents' tax dollars. The district attorneys, there's 43 of us in the state of Alabama, and we have a parent company called the Office of Prosecution Services, and they get that appropriation and they divide it up amongst the offices based on the size of population, caseload, things like that. That's about 38%, 40% of my budget. The rest of the budget is made for, comes from court costs, solicitors' funds, condemnations. In fact, you're going to notice there's a disclaimer on these T-shirts. When you get one tonight, there's actually a little disclaimer that says this shirt is paid for by funds seized from the drug dealer. One of my largest, we kind of put that on, and like when people come to the grand jury and come to court, a lot of times we tell them, you didn't pay for this. We seized money from drug dealers and things like that. Some of y'all may have seen the article in the newspaper where we dug up $254,000 out of the drug dealer's front yard. That's where a lot of that money comes from, because we actually seize that money, sue that money, and get a percentage of that to run our business.
Okay. So take us through the process just a little bit. I mean, somebody commits a crime. What happens then?
In a felony offense, basically what happens if you're charged, let's say you're charged with murder. All right. You were arrested, you're taken to the jail, you're processed. Depending on the offense that you've done is what they said was called bond. All right. With the exception of capital murder, which is where you murder somebody in certain circumstances, you're eligible for the death penalty, every criminal case is entitled to bond. And so your parents or a bonding company will come down and sign some paperwork that says, okay, I guarantee that you're going to come back to court. All right. Once you've had that, it's called a 72-hour hearing. Once you've had that 72-hour hearing, then your case goes to what's called a preliminary hearing. All right. Basically what happens is it's kind of like a funnel. All the cases pour in, and as they go farther and farther down the system, the funnel narrows up. After a preliminary hearing, you get a lawyer. You either get appointed one, or if you can hire one, you hire one. All right, and that lawyer comes to court with you and basically makes a decision: do you want to have a hearing or not? All right. That's a hearing in front of the district court judge to see, okay, is there enough evidence, enough what they call probable cause for it to go forward. After that, we impanel what's called a grand jury. Some of y'all's parents may have actually been on a grand jury before. That's 18 citizens who we make a presentation to in 4-minute increments, and they vote on whether or not the case goes to trial. Once that case gets past grand jury, it goes on to trial, and we have trial documents. Okay? To give you an instance, we have right at 500 cases set for trial, felony trial, in the month of February alone.
Wow. So has anybody out here been on the grand jury before?
How was it? It's very interesting, isn't it? You get a chance to see things that are going on around you that you don't realize are going on around here.
And I think that's a good point. I mean, there are some things that it's obvious that they're crimes like murder and theft and things like that. I think sometimes though we maybe don't realize just what some of the laws are about some things, and especially as young people, think they're invincible and nothing bad's ever going to happen. Sometimes they can be surprised. We've got a video we're going to show real quick, and I want you guys to watch it, and then we'll get your reaction to it.
State police say there has been another case of sexting at a mid-state high school, and as a result of this case, 8 students at Susquehanna High School are charged with possessing and transmitting child pornography. Allie Lanyon has details. Allie.
Alicia, the 3 girls and 5 boys are charged as juveniles. Police say they caught one boy on school property.
State police say the 8 students at Susquehanna High School face serious charges. Some are accused of taking nude photos of themselves on their cell phones and sending them to classmates, who in turn may have shared them with others. It was discovered when a student was caught showing video of a sex act on his cell phone on school grounds.
One of the things that children have to realize that if they engage in this, more than likely they will be prosecuted and there will be punishment involved.
In this case, the 8 students are charged with possessing or transmitting child pornography.
And quite frankly, the fact that they're being prosecuted at least will hopefully send a message to other young people not to do this.
Michael Gear is with the Pennsylvania Family Institute. He views sexting as a real problem that needs to have real consequences.
Well, I understand some people look at it and say, well, they're just kids. But if we remove any sort of prosecution or any potential penalty from this, what will happen is kids will feel the green light is there.
But many feel criminal charges are too harsh. It's a debate that is now beginning in this rural Perry County district. Should these teens be held accountable in a court of law?
I would think so. I would think so. I mean, it's just, if not, it's going to lead to something else down the road if they're not corrected now.
Because kids are kids, and why should they be marked? That would affect them the rest of their lives. Yeah. I think someone needs a break when they're a child.
The district attorney says that teens without a criminal record will likely be eligible for a rehabilitation program and could have their records wiped clean if they complete some classes. The school superintendent says he was only aware of 3 students involved with the investigation and says students are taught about the dangers of sexting. He says he's disappointed some teens chose not to follow that advice. Back to you, Alicia. Thanks.
Was anybody a little surprised by that? Raise your hand if you were surprised by that. I mean, you guys have certainly heard of folks who have done this before, take pictures of themselves, send it to their girlfriend or their boyfriend maybe, and what was the charge brought against them? Did y'all catch that? Yeah. I mean, Brian, how does this work? I mean, it seems like that's not something that people would typically associate with child pornography, right?
Right, and that's what happens in something like this. A lot of these laws have been written along as they go along, and actually getting a law passed is actually very difficult. You have to have a sponsor, you can write it, go through different committees and things. And a lot of things, what's happening is a lot of the laws have been written designed to do one particular thing. Okay? Like the rape statute, that was written one way. This child pornography statute was written a different way. Okay? When this was written, we didn't have cell phones that could send stuff back and forth. Okay? They were basic, like when I was in high school, we had the bag phone. Very much like a suitcase, you carry the thing around. Okay? All right, here's a question for you. How many of you here have a cell phone? All right. Out of all of y'all got your hands raised, how many of y'all have ever taken a picture with that cell phone? All right. How many of y'all have taken a picture of something you shouldn't have? What? That's a trick question. Okay. Can y'all see that in the back? The back row, can y'all read that? Is that big enough? Okay. All right, one of the things you're going to hear me refer to 13A a lot. Okay, chapter 13A is a book. It's titled 13A. It's the criminal code of Alabama. Okay, in fact, that's it right there. It's an entire book full of all the different laws and stuff of how you can go to jail. Okay, Title 12 is the title that deals with sex offenses, pornography, child pornography, things like that. All right. Section 13A12, 192B, possession of obscene matter. Any person who unknowingly possesses any obscene matter that contains a visual depiction of any person under the age of 17 years engaged in any act of sexual intercourse, sexual excitement, masturbation, genital nudity, or other sexual conduct shall be guilty of a Class C felony. All right. Remember, we talked about earlier what a felony is, right? That means you could go to prison. All right, Class C felony, the range of punishment is 1 year and a day up to 10 years. All right. Right now, our office is working a case where we have a young lady who's under the age of 17 who's been taking naked pictures of herself and sending them to the older boys. Right? That's a felony. So it's just something simple of taking a picture of yourself and sending it and that kind of thing. And this is naked anything. The way they wrote it, we actually edited this, but there's all sorts of terms in here that you all need to see. Simple taking the picture is against the law. Okay? So if you have that on your phone, and then one of the teachers seizes that phone and it's on there, it's against the law. All right. 13A12, 192 is dissemination or display of obscene matter. Any person who shall knowingly disseminate or display publicly any obscene matter containing the visual depiction of any person under the age of 17 years in the same thing, any type of sexual activity, that's a Class B felony. All right, that's 2 to 20 in prison. All right, and depending on your age, and this is one of the things we try to impress upon people, especially for the older boys. All right, because of your age, some of these offenses are automatic certification as an adult. One of the things about this is, if you get arrested, all right, what happens is at this age you're at, basically you were processed by the juvenile authorities, all right, and assuming that you don't have any type of record, you stay in juvenile court. Go to juvenile court. If your parents can't come get you, they process you, and they take you to Tuscumbia, and they put you in a jail cell with kids your age who have been raping, robbing, murdering. I mean, it's a dormitory, so you're just in a room like this with beds with kids from all over North Alabama. Many of them are very dangerous. Depending on your age or your record, we can certify you as an adult instantaneously. And then you go to the county jail. Okay? And likewise, you're in a dormitory with people, robbers, rapists, murderers. Okay? Until somebody can come get you and find you out. The big thing about this is it's a double thing, all right? If you do it, and you're the one who takes that picture, all right, that's dissemination. Because the minute you hit send, that's the technical term for dissemination. Once you hit send and it gets in the air and goes out and about, it comes to somebody else's phone, that's a Class B felony. And so if you're sitting in class, your phone buzzes, and there's that picture, and as you sit there and have it on your phone, that's a Class C felony. So you're like, hey, I'm going to send it to my friends, and I think it'd be fun. Let's share this with everybody. Every time you hit send, that's a separate and distinct Class B felony. The thing about it is that on top of it, there's another section under here that if your parents find out that this is going on, and they don't take your phone, and they don't do something about it, that's a Class A felony. So now your parents are being charged with a Class A felony with a minimum punishment is 10 years to 99 years to life. Okay? I tell people all the time, when I was your age, we had the bag phones. We've all got these things right now. All right? No telling what we're going to have in a couple of years. That particular device can save your life, it can plan your life, and in about 2 seconds, it can ruin your life. All right? But the other thing, though, that Will and I talked about, being the district attorney, we're responsible for keeping track of stuff like this. Right? We've got a case going on right now, we're going to find that phone. We know who it is, we're going to find it, and then it's going to be bad. But the flip side of this is, it's against the law. Okay? Like we hear sometimes people talk about smoking, drinking, doing drugs, and what's called a victimless crime. Right? That's not true. All right? taking a picture of yourself naked and sending somebody doesn't hurt. It's not like a background where you go and you shoot somebody, you beat somebody, something like that. The thing about this, drugs, alcohol, smoking marijuana, things like that, the victim in that case is you. Guys, because when you do this, it doesn't hurt anybody else. It doesn't hurt him, it doesn't hurt me. It hurts you. Okay? And that's the one thing. The other thing is we talked about a little bit today on the telephone about, I'm 14-year-old. All right, so I have a day job and I'm responsible for keeping you safe and prosecuting you. But the flip side of it is, I'm also a father and I'm also a realist. All right? And the thing about this is, if something like this happens or if somebody engages in this, they're hurting themselves. How many of y'all heard about the cheerleader at Auburn? What happened to her? Okay. There's a cheerleader at Auburn. Okay. There's a lake not far north of Auburn, on Logan Martin. The cheerleader was on a boat with a group of friends that had been drinking. She had on a rebel flag bikini. And she thought it'd be funny to take her top off and expose her breasts to a boat of folks going by. All right. Well, one of the boys on that boat took a photograph of it. Within 30 minutes, it was on the internet. It was uploaded on the internet. And that's before iPhones. All right. By about noon, it had already circulated on the internet all over the southeast multiple times. During the period of that time, somebody saw the picture go by, captured a picture from the school yearbook, put them side by side so you could match the girl up, and before the day was over, she was off the cheerleader's wife. All right. How many of y'all been watching the Sweet Home Alabama show? Been watching that and seeing, you can fess up to it. Go ahead and raise your hand. We'll watch it too. Okay, go ahead and raise your hand. All right. The young lady who's on this particular, gosh, I was going to say I got one back with two hands back in the back. The young lady on that show went to college, went to Clemson, got a degree, got a good job, and went to work for NASCAR. All right. About 6 months to a year after her job, they fired her. Why they fired her? Because when she was in school, she took naked pictures of herself and sent them to people, and they bounced around on the internet. And that's the thing about this, is why we try to say this is a victim crime and you are the victim. Because once you post that out there, and it becomes an electronic medium, it never goes away. All right? Ever. And the thing about it is, like when y'all go to school, you go for job interviews, and things like that, employers screen for stuff like that. We had a very, very qualified young lady apply for our office. Got a resume, came down, it was a very nice presentation. The very first thing I did, I pulled her Facebook page up. And within 10 seconds of flipping through her Facebook page, that very nice bound resume of a very qualified young lady went right in the garbage. Because we didn't consider it. Because you know what we do for a living. It didn't happen. So, before we get anything else, any questions as to this?
Let's back up just a little bit. Several, to me, interesting things that you brought up. I mean, like you said, some of these laws were probably written back in the days of bag phones, and I remember my mom had one of those. It would barely make a phone call. Now I can, get my iPhone out and look up a picture of my house taken from outer space. I mean, technology is just going so fast, and the laws lag behind that, right?
Right.
And so, a lot of the things, like you said, that people are doing and that we're experiencing today, the laws haven't caught up yet. And, in some cases, that means, sounds like pretty severe penalties for stuff that could be considered, distribution of obscene materials. Some of the things that you talked about, we're talking about felonies.
Right.
Yeah.
That's in some of these ones, there's a new act called SORNA. It's the Sex Offender Registry Act. And there's actually a dispute as to whether or not the SORNA Act applies to this. But one of the things he's referencing, and a good example, I'm going to try to multitask here, is the rape statute. Okay? I marked it so I can get to it pretty quickly. This particular law was written in 1977. Okay? A person commits the crime of rape in the second degree if, being 16 years or older, he or she engages in sexual intercourse with a member of the opposite sex less than 16 and more than 12 years old. Okay.
So you're 16 years old, your girlfriend's 15 years old, you guys have sex.
Right. That's against law.
Yeah.
And there's some age provisions in there a little bit that kind of tailor this a little bit. But one things what we're looking into is seniors dating freshmen. You have some freshmen on the advanced placement course. They're 15 years old as a freshman. You've got some folks that maybe not on the advanced placement course that are 17, 18 years old that are seniors. And that's against the law. And, one of the things, one of the challenging things, like in our house, I try to explain things a lot to Tori, and in terms that you guys kind of relate, all right? Nobody in this room thinks this is going to happen to me. All right? I'm 44 years old. I was a teenager. Never thought anything was going to happen to me. Of course, bad things didn't happen to me. The thing about it is all it takes is one instance. For the boys, you're a senior, she's a freshman, something goes wrong, you break up, she tells her mother, and the next thing you know, the sheriff is knocking on your door wanting to talk to you. Okay. We've had, the last year, I want to say at least 6 come through our office. And the thing about it is, one of the things we talked about is it becomes a discretionary point for our office as to what to do with that. Okay. And so we look at them on a case-by-case basis. We had a case that just came through where the young lady was pregnant. And, you can, in an event where it's just the two of you, you can get into a he said, she said argument like that never happened. A baby is prima facie evidence that you did. So not only are you looking at a felony offense, you're looking at paying child support until that child is 19 years old.
Let's talking about evidence, going back to sexting as we call it. Like the thing that kind of the first introduction I had to this was preparing for the millennials class, an adult class that I talked about, and I found this story on CNN. I think it was a guy in Florida, and his girlfriend had sent him some pictures, and they broke up, and he thought it would be a really good idea to send that picture to all of her friends and families. He called it getting revenge, but the state of Florida called it distribution of child pornography, and he has to register as a sex offender the rest of his life just for pushing that send button. And you talk about how the consequences as far as the rest of your life goes, career, and people knowing that. That's a pretty big thing. As far as the evidence goes, I mean, let's say somebody thinks, well, I'm going to send this picture and delete it off my phone. Does that get rid of the evidence?
No. I can read every text you send, every picture you send. Just because you delete it off your telephone does not mean it goes away. Likewise with your computer. A lot of people don't know that there's actually on your computers, there's actually a folder in there that you cannot access. Everything you do, every email you send, no matter what you're doing, it stays in there. Okay? Same thing with your phone. This afternoon we were issued subpoenas to AT&T. And what happens is I send what's called a preservation letter, which means by federal law, they have to seize your account and no more deletions, anything like that. It stays there. Okay? I issue a subpoena and then I get a printout of all the stuff. So I can start going through it. And a lot of times in these cases like this, I've actually got the phone. When we come in, like a student, we'll pull them out of class, having seize the phone, and go get what's called search warrant. So a piece of paper the judge signs that allows me to turn the phone on. And there's what we've got. So that's what is a permanent record forever of what you've done.
And I guess that where there's computer or telephone, that goes to websites and text messages and everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about the discretion. You said that when you get these cases, you kind of go case by case. I mean, it sounds like there are some minimum penalties that would go along with it, right? But you're the one who decides how and if to prosecute.
Right. And that's probably one of the toughest things about my job. And we talked about this in the last period. I mean, it's, I personally sat down and read 1,100 different files to make a decision what the charge was, how to process it. And then in our office, the felonies and everything are divided up amongst 3 felony prosecutors by alphabet. And so what happens is, one, we have the discretion and decision how to charge you, or charge you at all. Second, once we get it, is how to indict you, how to process it. Right? And once it comes back out, then we've got a decision to basically make a decision that one, like a class C felony, is a year and a day to 10 years. Right? So as I'm looking at the case or whatever, I'm the one that makes the decision, okay, I'm going to hit you for 5, or I'm going to hit you for 10, or whatever the range I'm going to get you. And that's actually the really tough part, because you look at each one of these, and you can't just throw them all in a pile and say, okay, everybody gets 10 years. But one thing that's kind of a side note is as you get in trouble on it, it's like a point system. Every time you get in trouble, that's enough point. And basically after 3 points, then your minimum, no matter what it is 15 years. And so that kind of takes the discretion away from it. But on a day-to-day basis, that's pretty much what I do every day. I make a decision what to do.
Before we move on, does anybody have any questions about anything that we talked about so far? Questions or comments, parents or students?
For example, the child gets the text to make it clear. As a parent, what should she tell her child to do? Should they contact somebody or just
Delete it. Just delete it. Don't send it to anybody else. Just delete it instantaneously. And then basically, tell your parents, hey, I got something that was bad. I need to do. Don't send it to anybody else.
And so after that, I mean, if you delete it, the parents don't necessarily have a responsibility to notify you or anybody else. Is that right?
That's right. And so that's the best way to handle it. Because the thing with the parents comes in is that in instances where some parents will actually think this is funny, and we've come across this where they think it's funny, they know their kids are doing it, and that's when it gets them into trouble. Because if I can prove that the parent knows it, then that statute is some pretty serious stuff. Likewise on your home computer, just delete it. Instead, just delete it. Don't ever send it to anybody else. What are some of the regulations that you see? Well, the statute, this actually comes up a lot. The statute was written a long time ago to address people that were making their kids work, making their kids not go to school, things like that. Contributing links to a minor can be anything from hosting an open house party where there's alcohol served. And the statute says causing a child to become dependent or delinquent. All right. And so some type of activity that you as a parent here are doing or are allowed to be done that causes that child to be in a criminal atmosphere.
Isn't that also, say you're 21 without beer or someone who's 19?
Absolutely.
Same thing. And that happens a lot. You have a boyfriend who goes to buy beer and his girlfriend's there at 17, 18.
Absolutely. So you've got the contributing links to a minor. But the other thing, the flip side, like buying alcohol for somebody younger, like what you said, is civil liability. Because as a parent, if you have an open house party and the kids are there drinking, not only we can charge you multiple counts for each child that's in that house, but if one of those kids were to have a wreck on the way home, under the Dram Shop Act, you're actually responsible civilly. You lose your house, pretty much everything you own if you went outside the insurance policy. Yes, ma'am.
So, what if someone sends you a photo that someone sends you photos of will you be charged anything if you just possess that?
Yes. And that's what the top one is. Just the simple possession of it is against the law. Okay. And that's what I said. This statute was written, like the statute for the adults, was written to combat child pornography that's being produced by companies. Believe it or not, one of the things that's probably the most difficult thing that I do is, there are people that you're going to encounter in your life that are basically wasting oxygen. There's no, and that's just no other way to put it. I mean, with the death penalty situation we've got, the Alabama prison system is at 194% capacity. We're going to have a few more inmates go down. We're looking at a large-scale prison release like they're going to have in California. But the thing about it is there's certain individuals who, there's no other way to put it. They're a waste of oxygen. Because that's what they do for a living. They make and sell child pornography. And there are people out there in the world who buy this stuff. And that's what this statute was actually originally designed to do. I've seen things been produced by small children as young as infants. And that's what this was designed for. But the thing about it is the unintended consequence was it gets y'all's age bracket. And all it takes is one person, one teacher teacher sees the phone, and the phone ended up on my desk, and he ended up in court.
So is the age that much of a difference in terms of what can be charged, the prison sentences? I mean, what's the difference between just distributing obscene material and child pornography?
That's the thing, that's where it comes down to our discretion. Okay? There's a case that came out of Birmingham where there's one, I think the guy that was producing the child pornography got 940 years. Okay? That's when it comes up like this. That's where the decisions that are made by our office. Right? So let's say one of you does this, and we catch you. All right? That's when it becomes incumbent upon us to make a decision what to do with you. All right? If you charge in juvenile court, you stay in juvenile court on something like this, they're going to send you what's called Mountain Megs. All right? Anybody been to Montgomery before? All right? Like when you're traveling to Montgomery, like you're going to go to Auburn on the interstate. All right? When you go to Montgomery, turn left on the interstate. As you get about right outside of Shorter, you're going to notice it looks like a prison. All right? That's Mountain Megs. The only difference between Mountain Megs and out here at Limestone Correctional is they're kids. All right? Kids your age, holding cells and jail cells with rapists, robbers, and murderers. Because that's what they send. All right? As an adult, you're worried you're going to risk going to the Department of Corrections. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to talk to people about this. We're going to different youth groups, talking to different schools. Because, again, most of us, when you're a teenager, you don't realize nothing's going to happen to me. I'm invincible. I can do whatever. Well, this is something we're trying to hit this off the path a little bit. Because one of the big things about our job is not necessarily all prosecution. I explain crime to a lot of people, and you're going to get this, what's called supply-side economics. All right? You have supply and demand. All right? One way to stop crime is to stop the demand and stop the supply. All right? Basically, the best example is drugs. All right? If I can stop the drug dealers from selling drugs, there's no drugs being sold. If I can stop the people taking drugs, there's no drugs being bought. That's supply-side economics. All right? It's the same thing with this. I can spend a lot of resources doing this and prosecuting kids your age, but we can start going through as technology speeds up a little bit. Say, look, don't do it. If you get caught, then we're going to be creative what to do.
Yeah, and to Shay's question, it sounds like what you're saying is technically yes. If somebody sends you a picture, that's a crime, even though you couldn't help it. But you're not necessarily going to be prosecuted if you just delete it immediately. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
If somebody sends it to you, delete it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at stopping the chain. We want you to stop taking it, first of all. Just don't do it. I'll give you a good example. Look around the room, there's light plugs. All right? How many of y'all would lick your finger and stick it in that light plug? Anybody? I see one hand back there. Other person over here in the back that raised their hand. It's the same type of thing, okay? Anybody in their right mind wouldn't lick their finger and stick it in the light plug. Use the same analogy, okay? All it takes is one finger to end basically your future.
We got about 10 minutes left. Got several other things that we want to maybe try to get real quick. Talking about something that's sort of related to sexting is just pornography, right? I mean, there are some laws about, if somebody's at home on their computer looking up stuff, there could be consequences for that too, right?
Right. Basically what happens is, when we come in, we seize computers pretty regularly, and we start looking into the browsers and things to see what people are looking at, especially child molesters. When you download something off the internet, it automatically loads onto a special folder that we can get. And forever, everything, I can follow your history no matter what you've been doing, no matter what, other than destroying the computer itself. If you download pornography off the computer, you have an issue of how old that person is. Okay? You may download, type in hotchicks.com or something, and a picture comes up on your computer. She's under 17 years old, and you just committed a felony. And there's a record. And for some reason, sometimes we end up at your house with your computer. There you are. We actually just arrested somebody in North Park County, seized all their computers and everything, and they're moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, That's something. Another thing that probably folks don't think just a whole lot about. But like you said, I mean, we're talking felony here. That's a pretty serious thing. We talked a little bit about the rape statutes and stuff like that. I remember when I was in high school, there's a movie that MTV came out with. It was called Jailbait, and it was about kind of the situation you described, where you've got like say a 17, 18-year-old guy dating a girl who's a few years younger, but because of the way the laws are written, if they decide to have sexual relations, he can be charged with rape.
Right. And that's we charge with rape and sexual abuse. Okay. Rape, the difference is you actually have sexual intercourse with rape, touching, that's sexual abuse. Okay. We've actually had quite a few cases. We've had 6 we can think off the top of my head. We've had most recently was a senior in high school, and she was a freshman. She snuck out, and they took off and got caught in the park, and he got arrested. And because of the offense, was charged automatically as an adult. So there he sits in the county jail.
I mean, does it just have to be intercourse?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. You've got the rape is actually having sexual intercourse.
Mm-hmm.
The charge of sexual abuse covers any type of touching.
Yeah.
In a sexual way.
You mentioned, with the delinquency of a minor, underage drinking, stuff like that. Talk to us a little bit about that and what your office does when you find teenagers who are using stuff that they shouldn't.
What happens like that is, let's say you're at a party, and we come in and we raid the party. You're looking at public intoxication, open container, minor in possession of alcohol, or if you're in the county, it's called IPPL. One of the interesting things about our county is you can buy alcohol in the city limits. You can buy alcohol in the areas that have been incorporated into Limestone County. So like say County Line Publix. Somebody can buy alcohol County Line Publix, drive down Browns Ferry on the way back to Athens, and be arrested between Huntsville or Madison and Athens because that's called IPPL. You cannot have it in your possession. What's going to happen is something like that, you will go to juvenile court. And how many of y'all know Judge Anderson? Anybody have any deal with Judge Anderson? All right. Judge Anderson's going to put it to you. That's the way to put it. She will get a hold of you, and she will twist you every which way. You're going to be doing community service. You're liable to go to jail for a weekend. You're going to be doing a lot of alcohol counseling. You're going to be in the hot sun with us. We have a trash control that we load folks up and get them out in the hot sun picking up garbage. And so, if your parents can't come get you immediately, you go to Tuscany. So there's a lot to that.
Wow. Well, I'm sure nobody here would ever do anything like that. What happens if you're just, whether it's alcohol or actual drugs, I mean, what happens if you're riding in a car with somebody who has alcohol or drugs, or you're at a party or something that gets raided, as you said? But I mean, can just being there with other people who are doing these things get you in trouble?
Absolutely. And it's what the non-fancy term is called accomplice liability. Okay? If, let's say 4 of you are in a car, you're all right, driving around, and there's drugs in the car, and the police department stops you, and they search that car, you're going to go to jail.
Everybody in the car?
They'll take everybody in jail. Because half the time, when they ask, okay, whose dope is this, 9 times out of 10, nobody claims it. And so nobody claims it, everybody goes to jail. Okay? But the big thing about accomplice liability, there's an old expression, lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. Have y'all heard that before? The big thing about this is, if you're at a party and something's going on, or if you're in a car and something's going on, you can be held responsible. I give the best example I can give you is 3 or 4 people in a car. One of the guys in the car, you don't realize your friend's fixing to rob the gas station. You don't pull in the jiffy, you get a Coke or whatever. The guy goes in with a gun, robs the gas station. Everybody in the car is charged with robbery. Okay? Even though you didn't do it, you're still just as responsible because you were with them. You have the criminal aspect, but you also have the stigma aspect to it. Is the fact that if you run around kids that are behaving like this, you're going to get the general reputation. One thing, it also goes back to seeing these pictures. One thing you guys may not realize is that your parents talk to each other. They talk to each other a lot. There's times that we're driving in the cars behind you, look like 2 cars back, and we're back there watching. But you girls, you start going to these parties, you start getting into this, boys' mothers are going to start talking about it. They're going to start, well, she's this and she's that. It's the same thing for the boys. The girl's mother, well, you know, he got picked up the other day because he was drinking, or he got picked up because he had a bag of dope. Pretty soon, there's some real cute girl in school, you want to take her out, you ask her out. She says, yeah, she goes home. Mama says, no way. And all of a sudden, you get that phone call about an hour before you're supposed to pick her up. It's like, I'm sorry, my mom won't let me go out.
And now that's probably a lot easier with Facebook and text messaging. It's a lot easier for word to get around. So it sounds like what you're saying is, and this is something that I heard a lot from my parents when I was in high school, is it doesn't matter whose it is or even if they claim it. If you're in a car with somebody who's got something they're not supposed to have, y'all get stopped, you're going to jail.
You're going to jail.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Got a few minutes left. Questions or comments about any of it?
If you're in a person's car and previous day you're in that person's car, are you charged? Like the following day they call the gas station, are you charged with robbery?
No, it's just like you and I are in a car, and you're in a car on Monday with me, then I go on Tuesday and rob the gas station. No. Okay, you've actually got to be in the car with the person when they do. Okay.
Any other questions? And that's a really relevant question too, because that's a really relevant question, because as we've been talking about sexting and things like that, it's not just getting in trouble a little bit. You're labeled as a sex offender for the rest of your life, right?
Right, and that's the thing about it is there's multiple layers of punishment for something like this. Okay, it's called SORNA. It's the Sex Offenders Registration National Association. Okay, Notification Act. That's it. Not only do you, let's say you're convicted and you go to prison. All right, we're not going to talk about what they're going to do to you as a sex offender in prison. All right, but once you get out, the rest of your life you're subject to SORNA. All right, every time you go and move in, let's say you live somewhere else and you move to Athens, you have to go see Greg Parnell, the city police department, and register as a sex offender. Every time you move, you have to sign up, all right? There's restrictions. You can't live near a school. You can't live near a daycare. You can't live in a certain housing project. So it crafts where you live. And one of the things what he's talking about, we're having a real epidemic of that. We're basically working with that. If you move, if you change location, let's say you want to live in the county, you move to the county, you got to register. Everywhere you go, everything you do, no matter how long it takes you to go where you're going, you've got to register. Every couple of weeks, you've got to check in with those people to keep track of them. Because if you don't, that's a whole nother felony that we can tack on top of you. And like we were talking about the point system, you've already got points for being a sex offender. Now you're not registering, you go back to prison.
And yeah, you have to tell your neighbors too, right?
Right.
People living around you.
To the neighbors. Yeah. I mean, like if you live in an apartment complex, they send to everybody in the apartment complex. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you what, you know, when they send that notice out, the welcome wagon will not come out.
Ron,
yes, ma'am.
Also, we get them in high school. In all the schools, in our little workroom, we have a wall of pictures of people with their addresses. Those are some nasty little people. But those pictures never come down.
No.
They're there, and they will stay there.
We keep 3-ring
Go ahead.
We keep 3-ring binders. We get notifications. One of the big challenges also, and this is kind of an unrelated issue for y'all, is we're facing somewhat of an epidemic in Limestone County because the way the act was written, there's only certain areas that you can go to. And there are several motels on Highway 31 where there are a few places in the state of Alabama that they can come out and listen to their arrests. So what they do is they come out to the Department of Corrections with about $200 in their pocket, they register at the county country hotel, and then they disappear. So you see them walking around. And there's websites you can actually go to, and it's astounding. Because what you see how many there are in this area.
Well, and you know, a lot of states and cities they're writing laws talking about not being able to be within a certain distance of a school, or to where pretty much there's nowhere in the town that you can live as a registered sex offender. And what I hope you guys have maybe gotten tonight is that, I mean, you think of being a registered sex offender, you think of somebody who does really awful bad things. I mean, people who, you know, molest little children and stuff like that. It doesn't take a whole lot to get on that list. I mean, the kid in Florida that I talked about trying to get revenge on his girlfriend, he's on that list. I mean, I guess, you know, if somebody really wanted to prosecute you, I mean, even just pulling over on the side of the road and urinating or something, I mean, that could be a prosecutable crime, right?
That's indecent exposure.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys bearing with us tonight. And Brian, do we have one more question?
As far as, explain to it a little bit more as far as this type of thing, what it does as far as certain jobs you never get. Once they, at what point on your record where then there's certain jobs that they will never be able to go on?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's, you know, if you're a SORNA offender, you know, like those of y'all that want to be school teachers, no way. Daycare workers, no way. Hospital job, no way.
But youth minister.
Youth minister. Yeah. And that's the thing about it.
It's corporate job, background check. Felony, you're out.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, in essence, it brands a giant, you know, S on your forehead for the rest of your life.
Well, I mean, even working at the YMCA as a lifeguard, I mean, they had a day camp there, and they did background checks on all the lifeguards. You know, looking. One final thing. I mean, I guess tonight you've kind of heard a lot of the negative parts of Brian's job. Brian, you're not necessarily out to get people, right?
Right.
I mean, you're the one it's your job to send people to jail, but it seems like you also work really hard to keep people from getting to that point, right?
Right. And that's one of the things, you know, when I talk to different groups, I talk to a lot of kids, okay, and I try to be really direct, right? Some of y'all actually know me personally, and deal with me personally. I'm actually fairly easy to get along with, very nice, right? You know, you see me in court, I'm not so nice, okay? I'm going to get after you, right? But the flip side of that job is we're trying to keep you safe. This is actually a very, very good job. We see things during the day that I hope none of you ever see. And that's the thing about it. We're trying to get some of this stuff off the path, because I want you guys to have a very good, productive life. I want y'all to, you know, enjoy your lives, have a good time, go to school, get a good job, and not crash it. Because there's people around us that are. There are people that, and it's disturbing. We had two girls that are 19 years old that just came through court by the week ago. They're both 19, they're both pregnant, they both failed out of school. I mean, come on, no GED. And so, you know, something like that. We took both those girls, we put them in the Family Resource Center, we got them in the GED, we got them in other classes so children won't be taken away from them by DHR. I mean, it's, you know, what we do is not all getting at people and sending people to prison. Okay? And that's one of the things that we talked about is, you know, our door is always open. All right, we're in the courthouse in the first floor. You know, if you need something, call me, email me. I mean, you'd be amazed the number of people that stop me in Publix, or I'm always at Lowe's. Usually I got my overalls on Saturday morning, I'm at Lowe's buying part for something up broken. You know, holler at me. Say, look, I got a problem, or hey, this person's doing something like that, or if you see something going by, you know, let us know. Because the thing about it is, it's not being a snitch, it's looking out for yourself. It's looking out for your best friends, okay? The other thing is like when some of this stuff goes on, and some of the shenanigans goes on, for those of you that have like younger brothers and sisters, all right, I want you to think about the fact that you want your younger brother or sister either doing it, having it done to them, or them finding out what you're doing. 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Okay? But seriously, if anything ever comes up and y'all need some of us or whatever, whether it's me, the sheriff, the chief of police, or one of the officers or whatever, pull one of them aside and say, look, I got a problem, I need some help. Yeah. Okay?
And probably if you do that, I mean, it's I mean, you are the district attorney, they are the sheriff, but I mean, you're going to try to help
Right.
as much as you can. And I think that's quite an awesome thing. You brought T-shirts?
Got T-shirts back in the back corner. And so, like I tell you,
Hold on, guys.
they're all different sizes, and these are not paid for by your tax dollars. These drug dealers pay for these receipts money from the